Purchasing a Vitamix is an investment, and we want you to get the most out of that investment. A key part of longevity of equipment is making sure those pieces of equipment are in good working order through preventive maintenance and proactively cleaning with a purpose. So as you're training your employees or you're running your establishment, you want to make sure to look for certain key components to make sure that they are in an optimal working state. And you want to have some of those components on hand in case something should happen. So one of those components is what we call a drive socket or a coupling. So this comes on every Vitamix machine and it's meant to be a wear part. So if an employee leaves a spoon inside the container and starts the machine up, this part should be the part that breaks to protect the more expensive pieces that attach to this, like the drive shaft on that motor. The motor is going to be the most expensive component in the blender, so we don't want you to have to replace that because of an employee error. So the Allen key fits into the side on there. It'll say Vitamix across the top, and there's a little arrow pointing to where that is on that machine. So that is one key component to make sure that not only is it not cracked, but the teeth itself need to be in good working order. They need to be nice and sharp, very defined, as they'll start to wear out just from normal use. Or something that happens when employees are trying to work quickly. They'll grab the container and remove it while the machine's still running, as it's sometimes slowing down. That is going to create more wear and tear on the spline on the blade assembly, but also the teeth on that coupling as well. So this is a good example here of a spline that has had some aggressive wear. So at this point, you should definitely replace this. And then check where the drive socket's at, because those wear together. You want to make sure those are in good place. From the blade assembly standpoint, a brand new blade assembly should have a little movement with it when you spin it. So if I'm going to spin the bottom here, you can see I'm getting about a rotation or so after I release from my hand. It should not really free spin, and it definitely should not lock up like these. So this is an example of a bearing assembly that is basically worn. And at this is time that really you want to replace that. After this state, things start to bind up. Those bearings can start to deform or to shred. This is an example of one that is basically in that state. So I can turn this, but it's not easy to turn. I'm not going to be able to spin this. The motor's strong enough that it will continue to spin that blade and process, but the motor is going to be under a higher stress, which is going to create more heat, and it's going to shorten the life of that motor. So the blade assembly is a far cheaper component, one that's meant to be replaced, kind of like the tires on your car or your brakes. After a certain period of time, you're going to need to replace those. When you find a blade assembly that is in need of replacement, you can use a retainer nut wrench. Basically, that will just lock into this retainer nut on the bottom side of the container. You'll turn that counterclockwise, and that'll allow that retainer nut to be removed. That blade assembly will drop out of the container, and you can put the new blade assembly into that container, lock that in with a retainer nut, tighten that back down, and then you're ready to go. So very important to have these components on hand. You don't want a machine to go down because bearing assembly needs replaced or your drive socket is cracked. You're going to lose a substantial amount of money when your entire beverage program goes down. So being proactive about having those components on hand that are wear parts and making sure they're maintenance is going to be key. For the Vita-Prep or Vita-Prep 3, these units are typically stored and pulled out for use, and then after that is complete, they're put back. So you're going to see potentially a little different wear on this. The cord is a good example, so if you're constantly pulling this out, rolling it back underneath the machine, you can get more wear and tear in the cord, people just yanking it out of the outlet. So you want to make sure that the cord is in good working order. You don't want the machine to go down just because the cord has failed. So that's something over time would happen. For the drive socket, basically to replace that, you would remove the centering pad, and that gives you access on the back side. There's a cutaway that the Allen key will fit into. And again, the Vitamix text is across one side, and then there's a little arrow pointing to where the Allen key sets in. So you would just back that bolt out, pull that old worn drive socket out, replace that, tighten it back down. And that's going to give you the ability to keep things up and running and in good working order. Also a good idea to just keep an eye on the container itself. Sometimes somebody can drop those, or you might end up with a crack in the bottom that's a little bit difficult to see. So make sure you're cleaning with the recommended concentration of cleaners and sanitizers to get the most out of that equipment. From the Quiet One standpoint, same drive socket goes on that, very similar process to remove that. Some of the other things that can be things to keep an eye on would be how many cycle counts each machine has. So if you have more than one blender in your beverage location, you want to make sure that they're getting even use. More times than not, employees are going to go to the machine that's closest to the end of the build line. So they're filling up the container with all the ingredients for that frozen beverage. They'll go ahead and put it on the machine closest and run it. So what you want to do is make sure that that even use happens. And if you can't get employees to do that, you can actually physically move the machine after you determine how many cycles are on each unit. And if you find one that has heavy use, you can rotate to the location where the least amount of use is happening. To do that, you want to go ahead and cycle power. So we'll turn the machine off, hold down button 2, and then when we power that back up, it's going to tell us what version of software is on it, what programming is on it, and then it's going to go to how many cycle counts there have been that day or overall. If you hit that button one more time, it's going to give you motor life in hours, minutes, and seconds. So if I'm looking at 60,000 cycles or an exorbitant amount more time that's on a machine, I can physically remove that machine, move it to a different section of the build line, and that's going to give you the most out of that machine, because if the motor is constantly used, it's going to stay warm and going to be pushed a little bit further, and you're going to get less blends out of it as if they were evenly distributed across those. So I strongly encourage you, have these components on hand, these wear parts. They're really meant to protect your investment, and you don't want to have downtime where customers are trying to order beverages, but you don't have the ability to serve them.